Good evening and hello. I'm Mary Dixon from the League of Women Voters of Greater Los Angeles, representing tonight the Glendale Burbank unit, which is a subgroup within Greater Los Angeles. I'd like to welcome you to our candidate forum for the Burbank City Council. The League of Women Voters was started in 1920 after women won the right to vote nationally. For the last 50 years, men have also been invited to join. Thank you. Applause for the men. Candidate forums such as this are but one of the ways that the League of Women Voters provides voters with the information they need to make informed decisions. In order to be informed about your ballot, we'd like to invite you to visit the website we have started called vote411.org, which has information about your ballot and about the candidates that are here tonight. We would like to also thank the City of Burbank for making this forum possible. We are particularly grateful for the assistance of Jonathan Jones, the communications officer in the City of Burbank, and also his staff. And now I'd like to introduce our moderator, Rita Zwern. She's a member of our Glendale Burbank unit and a resident of Burbank. She's a moderator with great experience, and we're so appreciative of her being here tonight. Rita?
Thanks, Mary. Hello, and welcome to the candidate forum for the Burbank City Council. This forum is being televised live today on the Burbank Channel, Spectrum Cable Channel 6, and AT&T Channel 99, and will be replayed at various times until the election date on the Burbank Channel, as well as being available for viewing on demand on Burbank's YouTube channel. Attacks of a personal nature, including private matters, having no bearing on a candidate's public persona or ability to perform the duties of the office in a competent, ethical manner, will not be tolerated. If a candidate makes a personal attack during his or her remarks, the time required for me to interrupt the candidate and remind him or her of the rule will be taken from his or her own speaking time. The candidates for Burbank City Council are Hovhannes Tenoyan, Constantine Anthony, Chris Rosati, Emma Pinero, John Parr, Eddie Poland, Mike Van Gorder, Patricia Suarez Nacion, and Judy Wilkie. Candidate John Parr was not able to participate due to a last-minute personal issue. Each candidate will be allowed 1 minute for an opening statement. Following these statements, there will be a total of 8 questions during the forum. This will be followed by a 1-minute closing statement by each candidate. Each of the 8 questions will be addressed to a different candidate, beginning with candidate number 1. None of these questions have been provided to any of the candidates prior to this forum. For each question, the initial candidate will be allowed up to 2 minutes to respond, and each of the other candidates will be allowed up to 1 minute to respond. The second question will be addressed to candidate number 2, and so on. Following the question period, the candidates will be given 1 minute each for a closing statement. During the opening and closing statements and the question responses, our timekeepers will alert candidates to the time remaining with signs of 1 minute, 30 seconds, and then a stop sign when they are out of time. I'd like to remind the candidates once more to please turn your microphones on when you are speaking and off when you have stopped speaking. We'll now begin with opening statements. Mr. Tenoyan, your opening statement, please.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Hovhannes Tenoyan, and I'm running for Burbank City Council. I'm a proud Berkeley graduate, and one of the reasons why I'm running for council is the same reason that I love to live in Burbank. I think our community is very vibrant. We have a great potential for our future. And when I started off working for the city of Burbank, I fell in love with public service. That's why I took my education up to NorCal. I took it to Washington, D.C., and started a great career in data analytics. And now I've combined my career in data analytics with cybersecurity right here in Burbank. I love Burbank. I want to work for you. I want to make sure that your money is kept in your pocket. I know I say that a lot, but it's very important in these times. So thank you so much, and I hope everyone has a great evening.
Thank you. Mr. Anthony, your opening statement, please.
Thank you all for coming today. My name is Constantine Anthony. I use he, him pronouns. I am a current council member here in the city, and I'm running for my re-election. I was elected 4 years ago, breaking the record for most votes in city council history, and I plan on doing the same and breaking the record again in November 5th. I am the only candidate in this race endorsed by both a state senator and a state assembly member who represents Burbank, State Senator Caroline Menjivar and State Assembly Member Laura Friedman. I'm endorsed by both our mayor and our district attorney. Our mayor works as a deputy attorney general, and our district attorney works on all of the felonies and harsh misdemeanors that we work here in the city. And I'm proud to say that crime is down. Homelessness is down. We are constructing affordable housing. That construction is up. All of the things that people are asking us to do for the last 4 years, I have done, and I have met the needs of the city, and I plan on doing so for another 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rosati, your opening statement, please.
Thank you. My name is Chris Rosati, lifelong resident, lived in Burbank my entire life. My parents moved here in 1966. I grew up in Magnolia Park, went to Roosevelt, Luther, and John Burroughs High School. I want to be a bridge from Burbank's past to its great, great future. Excuse me. I want to be a bridge from its past to its future. I've served on over 30 boards, commissions, and committees over the years. Currently, I'm serving my third term, 12 years on our planning board, where I've chaired more public hearings than anyone on our current council. I can plug in from day one. In my everyday career, I sell real estate. I sell the American dream. People tell me every day why they want to move to Burbank, and it's for the same reasons why we live in Burbank. Public safety is at the forefront of my platform, and housing. I will never take our public safety for granted by defunding or abolishing those departments. And I know with my real estate background, I know that I can bring housing to our community by incentivizing development where we want it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Pinero, your opening statement, please.
Hello, my name is Emma Pinero. I'm a third-generation Burbanker and a Burbank Unified School District graduate. I graduated law school from Santa Clara University School of Law last year, and while working to obtain my law license, I'd like to use my skills and education to better my hometown, Burbank. I come from a working-class family. My mom is a graphic designer, and my dad is a salesman, and I live in what we call the flats of Burbank, near Costco. My expertise is in contract negotiation and ensuring that both stakeholders in an agreement can form a mutually beneficial relationship. So I'd like to bring those skills to the table when making decisions on behalf of all Burbankers. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Poland, your opening statement, please.
Hi, I'm Eddie Poland. I'm a baker, I'm a city transportation commissioner, and I'm a 33-year resident, and I love Burbank. My wife and I moved here in 1991 to raise a family. We bought what was at the time an affordable house in a great neighborhood. We sent our kids to quality public schools, and we were able to live our own dream of starting a small business to great success. But it's a dream that's increasingly out of reach for so many. We're facing rising rents, soaring housing prices, the effects of the climate crisis, aging infrastructure, and a tougher business environment. But it doesn't have to be that way. With a clear vision and strong leadership, we can make the Burbank dream available to everyone who wants to call Burbank their home. I will bring my experience as a small business owner, as a former television writer and producer, as a labor organizer, and also a city transportation commissioner to the dais to help forge Burbank's solutions to Burbank's challenges. I look forward to your questions, and I look forward to earning your vote to be your next member of the Burbank City Council.
Thank you. Mr. Van Gorder, your opening statement, please.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Mike Van Gorder. I'm happy to have been endorsed by the Burbank Teachers Association, the California Working Families Party, DSALA, all of whom are joining me out having conversations in our city. Collectively, we've knocked over 10,000 doors. I personally have knocked over 2,000 doors. I am the most viable candidate because I'm the best person for this job. I have a master's degree in housing, which is what everybody agrees is the most pressing issue. An affordable home for me at the time when my wife and I bought our home was not $972,000. Our mortgage is $5,300 a month. That is unsustainable for young people. And I have the degree, the acumen, and the experience working with housing policy to get us out of that hole. As a union member and as a parent of a child in our public schools, I'm honored to have gotten the support of the Burbank Teachers Association, who've joined me on the door knocking. So I'm not going to blanket the city in mailers. We're not going to create more trash. We're going to have real conversations. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Nacion, your opening statement, please.
Hello, my name is Patricia Nacion. I am a Burbank resident since 1999. My husband and I have been living here for over 25 years, and we have one son who attends the local public high school. My educational background is in communications and marketing and public relations, but currently I am a stay-at-home mom, and I am seeking your vote as one of your city council members. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Wilkie, your opening statement, please.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters for holding this forum for this community. Thank you to the candidates for running for office. I think as we're all finding out, it's hard and it's a lot of work, but it's fun. I am a 50-plus year resident of the city of Burbank. I'm a product of Burbank schools, and so are my children. I was a 32-year employee of the city of Burbank, just recently retiring in December as the assistant city manager. My 32 years of experience will go to work for you day one. I will hit the ground running without any hesitation. I'm going to bring common sense to the city council. I'm going to work really hard at unifying us. We have a bit of a us against them mentality, and nobody wins in that regard. I believe that all voices must be heard in our community, now more than ever. And I am here for Burbank, 100%. I love Burbank, and that is why I'm running. I am not seeking higher office. I'm not looking for anything other than to represent the community I love.
Thank you. We'll now begin the question period. The first question is directed first to Mr. Tenoyan. Proposition 33 would effectively repeal the 1995 Costa-Hawkins Rental Housing Act, which limited the ability of local governments from controlling rental rates of single-family homes, housing built after February 1st, 1995, or for new tenants. If this proposition passes, do you believe the City Council should use its authority to modify its current rent control ordinances? And if so, how? Mr. Tenoyan, your 2-minute response, please.
My answer is yes, but that comes with some caveats. With great power comes great responsibility, and I've always been a big advocate for home rule, for self-rule, and for empowering our local city. But there's also a drawback to that. I've heard something that a lot of constituents share is that you can't address a supply crisis with price regulations. So I definitely want to be very balanced with the power that we exercise, but I would support the repeal of that. And I do want to bring the power back to our local governments because we do want to put our constituents and we want to make sure that our residents are housed and that they're able to be sustainable with the rent that they're paying over long periods of time. I know that Burbank is a very long-term city and we want to keep it that way, and I'm going to fight for that.
Thank you. Mr. Anthony, your 1-minute response, please.
If you go to the yeson33.com website, you'll see me listed as a supporter. Not only did I carry the petition to get signatures to put it on the ballot, but I put in time and money to make sure that we get 33 passed. The California Apartment Association and the Apartment Association of Greater Los Angeles has been fighting against this because they know that rent control keeps people housed. They know that rent control helps tenants, but they also know that it cuts into their massive profits that they've been making all through the pandemic. So what they did was they put a second ballot measure, Prop 34, to stop any more Costa-Hawkins repeals in the future. So yes on 33, no on 34. That's my stance. I think it is important that we repeal these decades-old, out-of-date, archaic laws that prevent local municipalities from enacting their own housing ordinances. I feel local control, especially on rent control, is important, and I will be doing everything I can in the next coming weeks to months to make sure we have a local rent control ordinance here in Burbank. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rosati, your 1-minute response, please.
Thank you. It would be completely devastating if this passes. As a real estate agent, I can tell you, if you care about people, you certainly don't want to see something that's going to cause our tenants, our citizens to live in substandard conditions. And that's exactly what will happen. I move people to Burbank every day because of our housing stock. And it's because of our housing stock is why they're coming here. It's because they're living in substandard conditions in other areas. So I personally think that the landlords have taken it on the chin during COVID. They were forced not to take rent from their tenants, and then they couldn't collect their rent, and now they're coming after the landlords again. I think at some point, our landlords are just going to say, you know something, we're just going to give it up to the big corporations, and then what? Then we're going to have the tail wagging the dog, and we're no longer going to have people that really care about tenants. We're just going to have factories of people living in our apartments. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Pinero, your 1-minute response, please.
I think there's a lot of misinformation going around about what Measure 33, if it is repealed, would do. Essentially, it would provide local governments the ability to set in place their own rent control regulations. That doesn't necessarily mean that a rent control will be set into place. So I am all for the measure being passed, repealing Costa-Hawkins, because I think that if we can take control via local government, we can set the regulations so that it both affects positively landlords and tenants alike. There's a housing crisis that we have been all experiencing, I think, even since around 2008. So it's very obvious that we are in dire need of housing, and in order to support those needs, I think it's important that we ask residents what their opinions are and take that into consideration when making decisions. I've attended Landlord-Tenant Commission meetings. I've also attended the rent cap study meeting, trying to understand. Thank you.
Mr. Poland, your 1-minute response, please.
Thank you. I support 33, and I urge everyone to vote for it because really local control is what this should all be about. More than half of Burbank residents are tenants, and so they certainly deserve a voice at the table, and I really support what the City Council is doing today, right now, of having listening sessions, really bringing everyone to the table and coming up with solutions. We don't leave anyone behind, but we don't leave anybody out. So certainly we need to protect tenants, and we need to protect our community, and this is a perfect way to do that, so I definitely do support that.
Thank you. Mr. Van Gorder, your 1-minute response, please.
Prop 33 breaks a vicious cycle because the only growing segment of homeownership in our economy right now is venture capital, people who are investing in housing as a means to just grow numbers on an Excel sheet. They hold a property for a few years and they jack up the rents because they can do as much as they'd like, and then they sell it for a huge profit. I'm endorsed by the California Democratic Party's Renters Caucus because I will fight to ensure that Burbank's response to the passage of Prop 33 is to create new opportunities to keep people in their homes. Because the tools that were intended to protect homeowners when families were the dominant part of the housing market have now been co-opted by venture capital. It has to stop with the passage of Prop 33.
Thank you. Ms. Nacion, your 1-minute response, please.
I think that Prop 33 should pass. I think the City Council should have a say in having people stay in their rental house or apartment. Before my husband and I moved into our house, we rented for years, and we had seen our rents grow exponentially from 1999 to 2007, 25%. And then when we moved into yet another one, it pretty much increased the same. So I'm all for a rent cap. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Wilkie, your 1-minute response, please.
No, I am not supportive of Prop 33 because we already have rent control, and I think it's best to keep a level playing field through all of the communities, because this will change that dynamic. We need to build more housing, and this does the reverse of that. And Santa Monica, the beacon of rent control, has the highest rent in California. Communities where this has happened, Pasadena and others, we are seeing lots of buildings for sale. And it's not going to encourage developers to build more housing. It won't make sense on the return of their investment. And property owners won't invest in their buildings. But I will say, we do need to do more to protect tenants because there are absolutely bad actors. But Prop 33 is not going to solve that problem.
Thank you. This next question is directed first to Mr. Anthony. After weeks of record-high temperatures in Burbank, we are reminded that our local community needs to develop resiliency for businesses and residents in the face of climate change. What do you propose the City Council should do to protect our community from higher electricity rates and from vulnerability to blackouts during extended periods of high heat? And in this vein, do you believe the Burbank Water and Power should invest in utility-owned local solar and energy storage and to incentivize privately owned local solar and storage? Mr. Anthony, your 2-minute response, please.
Thank you. My very first night on City Council, I was not planning on introducing any agenda items or any topics. I was very new, very green. And yet we had a presentation given to us about fire prevention. And one of actually the largest cause of outages and fires in Burbank combined was the explosion of Mylar balloons on our power lines. It was a weird spike phenomenon that just happened to be really high that year. And I'm proud to say that that night I agendized the banning of helium Mylar balloons in Burbank, and we got it passed. It was the very first thing I ever got passed. So I'm very concerned with our outages. We have not had major issues with brownouts or blackouts because of heat or because of any other internal factors. It's always been external factors. So mitigating those is important. 2.5 years ago, the Burbank City Council passed the what we called the Burbank Green New Deal. It was a package of a bunch of ordinances collected together. The number one purpose of which was to get us to carbon neutral by 2040. We are well on the way to get there. We have done massive investments in our local utility to get there. It comes at a cost. We did have to raise rates, and that is unfortunate. We are still one of the lowest ratepayers in the county, though, so I am proud that we are managing that. Lastly, I was there when they installed the 75 kilowatt iron flow battery at Burbank Water and Power. My son actually helped pull the chain to install this giant machine. It's a great piece of equipment. It is, there's no moving parts. It is the future. So we are doing storage technology. With solar, because we are a charter city, we can push back on the California Public Utilities Commission.
Thank you.
And their rate change. Thank you.
Mr. Rosati, your 1-minute response, please.
Thank you. I went on a tour at a DWP plant, and I also saw the iron flow system. That is a great technology where we were able to capture solar energy, keep it for long periods of time, longer than we ever could before. I think it's important that we use reflective paint technology to cool temperatures for heat islands. I think our city does a great job with renewables, a good mix of renewables, wind, solar, geothermal, and now the iron flow. So I think the technology that we're using, we have very few outages in Burbank, and I think for the most part, our rates compared to other cities is fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Pinero, your 1-minute response, please.
So Burbankers have been experiencing higher electricity rates. We had an increase of 8% last year and an additional 8% this year, so up 16% with what we've had in the past. That being said, I think Burbank Water and Power has been doing an excellent job with the technologies they've been pursuing, but I think understanding, I went to school in the Silicon Valley and worked in the tech and sustainability sector, helping companies that were driving us towards a more eco-friendly future. I think that there are still technologies that need to be pursued, and I think the Eco Campus is a great, it's a great example of the Burbank Water and Power's use of their time and resources to push us to the future, but I think there can be more done, and I'd love to rigorously explore more options to push us into a better future.
Thank you. Mr. Pullen, your 1-minute response, please.
Well, first of all, I'm very proud of our Burbank Water and Power. We have like a 99, over 99% up rate, so which is much better than for sure the city of Los Angeles. So I'm very proud of the work they're doing. We have new leadership there, which has been very directed and very focused. So I'm very proud of that too. You know, the challenge that we have is that we only generate 30% of our power here. 70% is purchased off the grid, and so that's our biggest challenge: is finding real sources that will let us get to the 2040 carbon neutral future. And one of the bigger challenges, too, is what you mentioned, batteries, because batteries are very dangerous. And the new iron flow battery that we just got is hopefully the next generation of storage. But solar only works if we have the storage, because obviously if there's a weather incident or obviously at nighttime, the power generation goes to zero. So unless you have the storage, you're not going to get that overall benefit. So it's certainly a challenge, but I like the direction we're going in. I think we should all be proud of, and I think they're really trying to keep our rates low. It's a
Thank
reality.
you.
But, yes, thank you.
Mr. Van Gorder, your 1-minute response, please.
Yeah, I mean, we need more solar, absolutely, and we need to create more opportunities for different people to be able to engage in that. Earlier today, as I was doing my daily door knocking, I spoke to someone who lived in an 8-unit multifamily building, and she's shut out of climate resiliency. There's nothing that her home right now can do without direct support from Burbank Water and Power to help contend with the climate crisis. There are programs in Canada, in Germany, that provide single panels to apartments, so that people who live in apartments can engage in climate resiliency. I would really like to see that become part of our response. The battery generation or the battery scene is getting more and more promising. I'm excited to see where it's going. I'd like to see it get smaller and smaller so that we can engage more in different batteries and different kind of rooftops and get more people engaged.
Thank you. Ms. Nacion, your 1-minute response, please.
Well, I definitely think that Burbank should continue to seek out alternative energy resources to produce energy, to produce electricity. I think we definitely should continue to invest in storage. And one of the things, I'll just make it more personal, I live in a townhouse that is made up of 50 units, and our building cannot, unfortunately, because I believe it's the city, we are not able at the moment to put in solar panels on our roofs. So at the moment, I think we definitely should look into alternative electricity sources and most definitely be able to be carbon neutral. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Wilkie, your 1-minute response, please.
Climate change is real, and BWP is on the forefront of those issues. I think part of this is we can't put all of our eggs in one basket. I think it's incredibly important that we work hard at doing more solar in residential and commercial areas. We need to continue to invest in wind in other locations because it's not really feasible here. And there's a whole host of things that we need to do, and we need to make sure that we're on the forefront of those things and all the new emerging technology. But one thing that has happened is that our council took action to, instead of making the goal to be carbon neutral in 2045, we set that for 2040. And we're not going to get any credit for doing it 5 years early. And really what that has done is put a tremendous amount of pressure on our rates, because our rates are projected to go up until 2045 to meet all of these goals. So I think that's one thing we need to look at, reevaluate it, and reconsider that, because that would impact the rates in a positive way.
Thank you. Mr. Tenoyan, your 1-minute response, please.
BWP is one of the best of all the municipal utilities. So I definitely want to make sure that our engineers and our experts are very educated, very trained. We make sure that they keep their jobs, and we're sending them to really good conferences so they can bring back additional insights, see what the development and the evolution of the climate change industry and the sustainable sectors are going. And we definitely want to make sure that we are at the forefront of the solar energy. But I want to point out also that how many of Burbank's constituents are going to be benefiting from these new directions. There's a big divide between single-family homes, the amenities they have, as well as what renters have access to within their multifamily units. So if we're going to be applying these kind of new environmental sustainability directions throughout the whole city, we want to make sure that everyone is able to benefit from it, not just those who have the property interests and the property rights. So I'm definitely going to be supporting that for my 4-year term.
Thank you. The next question will be directed first to Mr. Rosati. Wait a minute, did I? Yes, that's right. The next question will be directed first to Mr. Rosati. The youth of Burbank are one of our most important assets. What is the city's role in providing resources to children and young adults to improve their opportunities for education, health activities, and employment? As a member of the City Council, would you support more programs for young people? Mr. Rosati, your 2-minute response, please.
Well, thank you for that question. I have a 2-year-old son, and I use all the resources. I use the parks, the libraries. I go to all the going on Burbank, the programs, the youth camps. I mean, I'm going to everything right now. I would strongly invest in our youth. I believe that our future is in our children. One of the reasons why I'm running for city council is for that very reason. I want to make sure that my family, my children, have the same benefits that I have. It's a wonderful city. I've been here since 1967. I went through all the youth sports, AYSO soccer, John Burroughs High School baseball. My sister played Pony League. My sister was the first female soccer player in high school at John Burroughs High School before that title had changed. So yeah, I strongly believe that we should invest in our youth, in programs and education. Whatever we can do as a city to help our school district out, we should do it.
Thank you. Ms. Pinero, your 1-minute response, please.
I'm strongly in support of expanding and also rethinking how we provide resources to our youth. I myself am a Burbank Unified School District graduate and captained the Burroughs varsity soccer team during the 2013-2014 season. So I'm well aware of kind of the programs we have here. And as a product of the environment, I'd like to lead by example what it means to be a successful individual and growing up in Burbank. I think the next generation to come is going to be incredibly important because they're the future leaders, and we need to make sure that we're providing as much resources and support as we can. So I'd very much like to look into expanding the programs and opportunities we have here in Burbank and making sure that they're protected, healthy, and taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Poland, your 1-minute response, please.
Well, I certainly moved to Burbank. My wife and I moved here to raise our kids because we knew that it would be a great community, and that's what it's been. I mean, all the city, the stuff that our city has offered, everything from our like our parks, but also our day camps, after school activities, and we're talking about kids, but it's really for the whole life cycle. I know my wife and I learned to swing dance at McCambridge Park, so I think we should look at all types of community opportunities that people can come together, because it also builds a stronger community, because it's not just about the individual receiving some services, it's actually about making friends and forming those relationships that really make the fabric of our society and really make Burbank as strong as it is. So I think it's essential that we continue to keep a laser focus on this and continue to support all these activities. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Van Gorder, your 1-minute response, please.
Yes, I absolutely support more and better programs. I have a child in McKinley Elementary. She's in the Spanish language immersion program, and she receives one-on-one counseling and therapy through Burbank Family Services, the Burbank Family Services Agency. And as I'm going around and I'm speaking to people, I've heard that that's not universally available. There is not as much availability for people to engage with this free service that we get through our schools. So I would want to make sure that we properly fund that agency and get more kids the help that they need to process their feelings so that they can understand the world a little better. I'm also concerned about enrollment going down. Less enrollment means less money for our kids in our schools. That is a product of high housing costs, and we need to take that on directly.
Thank you. Ms. Nacion, your 1-minute response, please.
Most definitely, Burbank should provide resources, and they do. The city of Burbank provides resources for the youth. I think definitely taking advantage of the Parks and Rec classes and the Parks and Rec teams, like my son was involved in the basketball program and the Little League or baseball league for 3 years. So there's definitely a lot of resources that families can take advantage of. There's also activities in the nature centers. So I think it would most definitely be advantageous for us to increase those programs, but we need funding for that, so.
Thank you. Ms. Wilkie, your 1-minute response, please.
I'm a product of these programs as well, and while I was employed with the city as the Management Services Director, I oversaw the BEST and the CREST program, which are terrific programs that employ students in our community. We need to involve ourselves in childcare. Childcare there's not enough of it, it's incredibly expensive, and the city needs to be a part of that. The library and park programming is best to none. I assure you, as the Parks Director, we do some good stuff. Could we always do things better? Absolutely, but we do some good stuff. One thing I'm proud of is I helped to pass the PASS program, which helps families in our community that cannot afford to be a part of programming so that no one is left behind. I'm proud of that. That is something that got adopted in the Parks and Rec and then went citywide. We need to do more internships. I was hired as an intern. We do not do that anymore, and we need to do that because it's incredibly beneficial. We need to have a stronger partnership with the Burbank Unified School District. They're all our kiddos, and our FSA program is great. The school district, the city of Burbank participate in that, and it is getting out to the kids, and I
Thank
know
you.
that.
Mr. Tunoyan, your 1-minute response, please.
Getting resources to our youth and our young adults is definitely a no-brainer. When I started off as a youth services worker for the city of Burbank, I was very fortunate to have that opportunity to work in our city government at a very young age. And without that experience early on, this campaign would not have been possible. Neither would any of my education or any other aspect of my career. So when I look at our young adults, I see a world of the haves, I see a world of the have-nots. And when it comes to this next generation, we need to make sure that everyone has access to an education. Everyone has access to these career opportunities. We should not be shunning any sector, any socioeconomic level out, especially in Burbank with our tight-knit community. We have the resources, we have the political appetite, and we have the passion for our families and our youth to be able to make that happen. And I'm going to be bringing that from my end.
Thank you. The next question will be directed first to Ms. Pinero.
Do I not get to respond?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Anthony. Yes, Mr. Anthony, your 1-minute response,
I mean, if I had a
please.
terrible response, I'd say
No,
skip
that's
me,
all
but-
right. That's got a little ahead of myself. Go ahead.
Thank you. The California High School Democrats have endorsed me and Mr. Van Gorder. The Burbank Teachers Association has endorsed me and Mr. Van Gorder. The Working Families Party has endorsed me and Mr. Van Gorder. The work that I've done over the last 4 years to mend the divide between the Burbank School District and the City Council has gone a long way. 4 years ago, there was an animosity between those two separately elected bodies. That year, myself, the mayor, Nick Schultz, the president of the school board, Emily Weisberg, we're all elected on the same ballot, and we have worked together to mend that divide, and we have covered a lot of costs for the school district. They are in a budget shortfall. We've taken on a lot of those costs. We're helping them out. We're continuing to do so. The work that we do at City Council, obviously, it does not directly affect the schools, but there are things we can do in the parks. There are programs and, I had to stop.
Oops,
Sorry,
thank
I was
you.
going over.
This question is directed first to Ms. Pinero. Burbank has a goal of sending no waste or zero waste to landfills by 2040. Is the city on track to achieve this? And what more can be done to teach and assist people and businesses to create less waste? Your 2 minutes response, please.
I would say that currently we are not on track. We did implement a composting program that unfortunately we have not been able to follow through with. It seems that the negotiations between the different waste facilities has kind of fallen through. So I would definitely like to reinstate that to make sure that we are actually composting the collections that we are receiving. Additionally, we've made some progress with our plastics program so that businesses are no longer using harmful plastics, and I believe it's like styrofoam and whatnot. So I think we're doing good things, but we need to more rigorously pursue different ways we can ensure that we are not putting waste into our landfills. And that means partnering with our different regional communities and making sure that that we're being mindful as residents as well, and that means education for our residents and for our youth about what it means to be sustainable. And I think we can also expand those programs to businesses so that they can also implement programs themselves to work towards a no waste future. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Poland, your 1-minute response, please.
I think we can do much better. I think that Emma mentioned the lack of a composting program. That's really a disappointment, I think, for our whole city. I'm also disappointed there's compostable products that are single use that they say compostable, but our city throws them into the landfill because we use a composting vendor that will not accept those products. So I think it's a priority issue. I think we really need to look a lot harder at this and really forge a path towards some sort of sustainability. I'm endorsed by the Sierra Club and the League of Conservation Voters because they share my same vision that we as a city can do so much more in terms of really embracing a lower waste type of society, and our Public Works Department really needs to step up and really understand the priorities of our community and focus our resources where they belong.
Thank you. Mr. Van Gorder, your 1-minute response, please.
There we go. Whether or not we're on track of being zero waste, I want to pretend like we're absolutely not, so that we have that fire to get us going so that we catch up. Composting is great. It's also something that's only available to homeowners that have the space that can accommodate the big drums. Individuals do have a responsibility to reduce their waste, and I think that, Captain Planet, among others, we're on our way to understanding how our own responsibility is part of that. But another concern of mine is that we have over a dozen companies performing trash hauling in a very scattershot way in the city. There's no uniformity. Most of that labor is ununionized. I'm concerned that there is a lot of oversight. There is a lot of waste. There's a lot of stuff falling out of garbage trucks. I see it in my own yard, my own home. Things tumble out, and then I have to take care of it the next week.
Thank you. Ms. Nacion, your 1-minute response, please.
Not exactly sure if we'd be able to get to zero waste towards our landfills, but I think it's possible, probably in maybe 30, 40 years. I definitely think that there should be a better composting program for residences, individual residences, because it just doesn't seem like everyone is actually doing it. Composting is great, and plastics, with, I believe, the governor signing on for the single-use, ban on single-use plastic bags is a great idea. We could start off with that, but it's going to be hard. Everyone has to do their fair share of, reuse, reduce, and recycle. So,
Thank you. Ms. Wilkie, your 1-minute response, please.
I think the Public Works Department is doing a good job, and I think that, and does that mean that we can't do better? Of course, we can always do better. But we did hire 2 new employees to help through the enforcement of this new program, which is going to take a lot of education, and it's going to have to start early with kids in the schools, and we're going to have to really involve ourselves because this has to become something that just becomes second-hand nature. I will say it's very complex and confusing, though, and so it's hard for people to understand what they should and what they shouldn't do. I do want to say that our Sustainable Burbank Commission has been a really great asset in this regard. They are the ones who took the lead on the plastics. I think that we should continue to lean on them to help us. They are warriors. They care about this, and I really think they're who we should work with. But I think we'll get there. But I think it's going to take a lot of work on our community's part as well as the city's part to make it happen. But I do think we can make it happen.
Thank you. Mr. Tenoyan, your 1-minute response, please.
I think waste management goals are great, but we also have to be realistic with the environment that we live in. With Burbank, we want to make sure everything's really clean, and I have no problem outsourcing and exporting all the waste out to other places, other plants, other treatment plants. Whatever we can process and recycle within our community, it's great. But we should also build more partnerships with the communities that we might be sending our waste to, make sure that they're okay with the kind of environmental impacts that this may have in their communities. And we should also invest in more technology. We can increase automation, especially with the vehicles, increase more sensors that can kind of give you a schedule and kind of an indicator of what your composting levels are, what needs to be sent from one place to the next. So within the next couple of years, I definitely think that we should put more funds, more regulations, but we should kind of taper that so that we achieve those goals gradually and we don't overwhelm our communities with these directions that we're taking.
Thank you. Mr. Anthony, your 1-minute response, please.
The Teamsters have endorsed me and Mr. Van Gorder. They represent the largest number of unionized waste haulers in the county. Earlier in my term, I'm on the record as having voted against a single-use plastics ban that city staff brought forward because it wasn't strong enough. I'm going to repeat that. I voted against the single-use plastic ban because it wasn't strong enough. We're coming back to make sure that it captures all of the plastics, the styrofoams, the waste that we see coming from small and large businesses. But I'm also going to push to have benefits in place for small mom and pops who have to deal with the new regulations. We want to be able to take care of our small businesses while still managing and mitigating the amount of waste that's being created by plastics and styrofoam and fossil fuel byproducts.
Thank you. Mr. Rosati, your 1-minute response, please.
Thank you. This is an important issue, but I think the word balance needs to be brought into it. We're coming out of COVID. Now 80% of our studio workers are out of business. Our local economy is suffering. So I think it's important that we have balance with what regulations we currently put on our residents and our business. I think education is important to know which item goes in which bin. It's very confusing, so I think that would go a long way. But I also think that our city's done a great job in the plastics ban that it has passed, but I just urge everyone to just have some balance. We want to reach those goals, but at the same time, we want to do it in a way where we're helping our business, our local economy and our businesses. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question will be directed first to Mr. Poland. The number of unhoused persons in Burbank decreased from 275 in 2023 to 258 in 2024. While any decrease is to be applauded, one reason for the persistently high number of unhoused community members is the lack of affordable housing. To increase housing density, would you allow for single-family home areas to be rezoned? And in addition, or instead of rezoning, what other practical solutions would you propose to address our housing shortage? Mr. Poland, your 2-minute response, please.
Well, I want to start with a shout out to our current city councilor for making great strides in dealing with the unhoused. We have a new housing unhoused services center that's going to be opening up soon, and we also have compassionate policing. We have mental health teams. So that's really important. So that's the first part of it. The second part of it is I believe we have lots of areas of Burbank that we could actually redevelop and build in a lot more housing. I look particularly at the old IKEA and the Kmart. I also look at streets like Glen Oaks, which is a dangerous freeway line with single-story buildings built after World War II that could be developed into mixed-use buildings. So I think the place to start is where we have an abundance of space to allow for more housing, and I think we need to adopt something called the Livable Communities Initiative. It's a 29-point plan that actually makes it possible for small developers to take their properties and develop them into mixed-use facilities, buildings 3 to 5 stories tall, and it's really specific things that we can do as a city to make it pencil out, because that's one of the challenges, that the city itself is not going to be building the housing. We need developers to do it. So we need to become more friendly to those developers to build the type of housing that we want. Burbank, for too long, did not build anything, and we need to turn that around. And I think, we started with the state mandates are forcing us to build large buildings, which are a piece of the solution, but we need a lot of middle housing, too, for young families, because the key to our city is the future of our city is on young families moving here, and right now it's out of reach for almost everybody. So the building of housing, making it possible, and I'm also a big supporter. Tenants are great, but the dream of home ownership is very important, and there's lots of opportunities for having that in our city, and that's where we need to be going. So very important, and I think there's strategies that we can do it, and we need to make sure our city staff steps up and makes it possible.
Thank you. Mr. Van Gorder, your 1-minute response, please.
Yeah. So I have a master's in urban planning, community economic development, and housing from UCLA. We, as a city, are only building two formats of housing. Large-scale luxury apartment complexes that rent out starting at $5,000, and homeowners can build an ADU if they have $100,000 to $200,000 sitting around somewhere. That's not enough. We need to create infill housing. We need to create Maryland-style infill row housing, capturing underutilized commercial spaces. There's a lot of state laws coming out right now, like SB 6, that are making it easier, faster, and therefore much cheaper to recapture that space and incentivize smaller developments and smaller developers. That's what I really want to lean on. With the two neighborhood plan updates that we got coming up in the Media District and the Golden State District, we have a huge opportunity to build smaller and cheaper for actual working families. That's my priority.
Thank you. Ms. Nacion, your 1-minute response, please.
I think it's definitely very commendable that the amount or the number of unhoused people has dropped. That means that social services within the city of Burbank is working. I think it's going to be hard for the city to come up with viable and economical solutions to solve the homeless issue. It's definitely a nationwide problem. We definitely should continue to have better mental health workers, overseeing and social workers being able to approach the unhoused and help them.
Thank you. Ms. Wilkie, your 1-minute response, please.
I think the question was, do we agree with the rezoning in order to create affordable housing? And I think that's already happening because the city of Burbank hasn't met their housing goals, and so there's a lot of new laws that have been placed into effect to force cities like us to build more housing. So I think that's already happening. Right now, we have 3 specific plans that are out. We need to be smart, and we need to put into those plans right now on the old, on the mall property, the town center property, on the old Kmart, on other commercial and industrial spaces in Golden State, the downtown, and the Media District, make it so that that happens, right? We need to build housing, and so it's transparent for developers as well as for residents. And lastly, we have a partner in affordable housing. It's Burbank Housing Corporation, and the city is going to have to engage. We have to be a part of the solution, and we're going to have to find money through the new housing trust that's been found, and we're going to have to get creative and work with developers and incentivize it because it needs to happen, and the city has to play a vital role in making sure it does.
Thank you. Mr. Tenoyan, your 1-minute response, please.
So with the kind of issues with homelessness and then the housing stock, I feel like the two have to be uncoupled for a little bit. When we approach the homeless issue, we have to approach it with how can we increase their capacity for mental health, how can we increase their capacity for financial independence, and make sure that they have the social connections. My first question, if I meet an unhoused person, is to ask them, does anybody owe you money? How can we find the resources that you are owed, beeline you to those resources, and then we can focus on establishing more permanent housing. And then that way, when I transition over to increasing housing stock and being more development friendly, I definitely want to identify areas within Burbank that can be redeveloped. I definitely want to apply as much legal protections and powers that we can to make sure that development occurs, that we have stakeholder buy-in, and that we're creating a city that's attractive for people to actually move into, live here, work here, and spend their money here. When we direct too much resources to different crisis situations and kind of different pet projects. Sorry, thank you.
Thanks. Mr. Anthony, your 1-minute response, please.
So to answer your question, yes, homelessness is a housing policy failure. It is directly tied to the lack of affordable housing, the lack of affordable housing construction. I absolutely think we need to rezone much of the city. In fact, we have to if we want to meet our regional housing number allocations. The state is mandating that we build, and currently, if we don't rezone anything, we won't be able to meet those numbers. So, yes, we are going through a big process right now at the city to rezone a number of areas in the city to allow for more what's called missing middle housing. If you're at home and you're watching this live or on replay, Google that term, missing middle housing, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Fourplexes, townhomes, condos, that kind of stuff. The stuff we built in Burbank in the 80s and 90s when we were prosperous. So that's what I want to go back to.
Thank you. Mr. Rosati, your 1-minute response, please.
Thank you. As a member of the planning board, I voted for the first rendition of the ADU, and I rejected every other rendition of the ADU because I recognize it as a zone change. We are failing. We're failing at the state level down. I voted against SB 35, SB 9, AB 2011, all these housing bills that create impacts on our residential neighborhoods. What we should be doing, and I've been saying this for the last 5 years, and one of the reasons why I'm running for council is because we should be incentivizing development where we want it. We have properties that are sitting there vacant for decades, like the Kmart site, like the former IKEA site. All around our town, we should be looking at properties that we can turn over and incentivizing the development to get those properties turned over and build the things that we need in our community. Who are we helping with the $5,000 ADU payment a month? Who are we helping? We're helping the investors and the developers. We're not helping people. And I've been saying this for the last 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Pinero, your 1-minute response, please.
So I attended the Senior Citizen Board meeting, and one of the commissioners most notably spoke about, although our homeless numbers have gone down, there has been an increase about 25% of our elders being unhoused. So with that being said, I think there are many practical solutions that we can put in place that serve every kind of stage of the unhoused. The city of Burbank has implemented a safe parking program where they're trying to locate spaces for those that are living out of their vehicles. I think that's important to pursue. When we talk about our arena allocation numbers, it's become very obvious that if we don't pursue very rigorously development projects that fit our landscape, we'll end up with developments that are not necessarily meeting the needs and wants of our community members. I also think our density bonuses that we provide for those offering affordable housing can be increased. I understand that other communities, such as Santa Monica, offer up to 50%. Oh,
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next question will be directed first to Mr. Van Gorder. Some residents believe that the city of Burbank has a crime problem. Do you agree that crime is a concern that deserves additional resources? And is your answer based on data or residents' feelings? Mr. Van Gorder, your 2-minute response, please.
People's feelings. People are concerned about crime because they are constantly buried in this narrative that everything is getting worse and you need to be afraid all the time. I have spoken to so many people at their doorstops who the first concern, I'm always asking, like, what are you worried about? And they'll say crime. And then I ask, have you been the victim of a crime? And they say no. Have you seen a lot of crime in this area? No. It's not really. I'm like, okay, where I live over at Alameda and Lake, there's been a little bit of catalytic converter theft. There's some graffiti. I certainly don't enjoy, taking my daughters to school and seeing someone's non-art on an apartment building. But violent crime is down nationwide. But that narrative is so difficult to beat. I am interested in increasing public safety with personnel rather than new equipment. I'm very interested in our alternative police response models, unarmed police response models like the mental health evaluation team. I think that is such a wise investment. And we could be doing much more because we only have that coverage a few days a week. We can cover the entire week with more people. And that's exactly what I would want to do if the next police budget comes in front of me, is get more people who have more in different specializations. Who can respond to different situations. Because right now we expect our police to play 10 roles. They need to be a diplomat. They need to be a crisis negotiator. They need to be a comforting presence, and they need to be a forceful response. We cannot put so many tasks on one person. We need to have more specialists. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Nacion, your 1-minute response, please.
I don't think that Burbank has a problem with crime. I think we have a traffic situation that, whereas the crime I think is, or what would you consider crime, is traffic violations. I think additional resources could most definitely be utilized by the police, but I think we have a very great police force, and they do their job very well. And I think they definitely do wear a lot of hats, and that's just the nature of the job. I think, for the most part, when I do ask friends and associates who do live in Burbank, they don't necessarily think there is a crime or violent crime issue. It's, again, more so graffiti and unhoused that they're kind of scared of. And for the most part, I think also the feeling of safety comes
Thank
from.
you.
Okay.
Ms. Wilkie, your 1-minute response, please.
First off, I'm incredibly proud of the men and women of our police department. They do wear a lot of hats, and they do a great job, and we have fantastic response times, and that's something we should all be proud of, because when you need them and they are there quick, it makes all the difference. We do have crime, and I do hear that from people all of the time, and I think some of it is perception, to answer your question. There are some crimes that we have seen are going down in the city of Burbank and in the LA County region, and violent crime is one of them. But robberies are up. And those are things that people are concerned about. They see it all of the time, that people are knocking on people's doors, breaking in, and people are concerned about that. In fact, I hear that from people when they answer their doors. Some of them are saying, I was a little nervous about answering the door. So it's perception, but it's also reality. We have speeding. We have lots of issues that are causing people to be concerned that we're not able to get control of some of the crime that's happening in our community. And so I think we have to do more to make people feel better, because safety is something that's incredibly important to all of us. And so I think that we have to help.
Mr. Tenoyan, your 1-minute response, please.
We definitely have to look at the data that shows that crime has been rising, and we have to listen to our constituents and what they feel about what's happening in their communities. And when we look at Burbank, it's very rare for a Burbank neighbor to commit crime against another Burbank neighbor. But we see a lot of people from outside of Burbank coming into our town, and they're harming our citizens, they're stealing from our businesses. And as great as our police department is and getting the investigation started and getting it to the point that it needs to, once it reaches the county level and the district attorney, the buck basically stops right there. So in Burbank, we need to start becoming more advocates, more vocal about our citizens and the victimization that occurs in our town. We need to start fighting back against any litigation and any court policies that is soft on crime and hard on victims. And we start to turn that mentality back around. So I definitely think that we need to pay more attention to what's happening in our community. We should not be turning a blind eye. And anyone who tells us otherwise, we need to prove them wrong.
Thank you. Mr. Anthony, your 1-minute response, please.
So right before I became mayor, I actually got my official diagnosis for autism. I'm the country's first ever diagnosed autistic mayor. And so when I form policies and positions and take my votes, I do so based on facts and figures and data. That's just the way my brain works. One of the hardest things I've had to come to terms with in being a public official is that most people, neurotypicals, they vote based on their feelings most of the time. That was a hard thing for me to understand. Crime is based on data, but safety is based on feelings. Crime is down in Burbank. Police chief says it all the time, but people feel unsafe. So that is a huge disparity.
Thank you. Mr. Rosati, your 1-minute response, please.
Thank you. I've been endorsed by the Burbank Police Officers Association. I've also been endorsed by the Burbank Firefighters Association. My platform, the two biggest things on my platform is housing and public safety. I will never take our public safety for granted by abolishing or reducing those budgets. As our population grows, we will also need to make sure that our public safety is adequate. I want to make sure that they have the equipment they need, the firefighters have the men and women on their trucks that they need, and that our police department has the equipment that they need to do their jobs every day. As a member of the Burbank Police Foundation, I can tell you those guys are rock stars. I've been on several ride-alongs, and the things that they come in to deal with every day is what would make your head spin, and I 100% support them. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Pinero, your 1-minute response, please.
I think our Burbank Police Department is excellent, and they are a leader, I would say, arguably in the nation for their type of response. They've also done a great job at auditing their own police responses and ensuring that they're following proper protocol, as well as, treating everyone with respect and dignity. So I think that's really important, and I think we should make sure that we are providing the proper resources, funding, training, so that they have the manpower to enforce the different regulations that we implement. I think enforcement is incredibly important because although we have all these regulations, we need to make sure that we're actually following it to fruition. So I would be a strong supporter of increasing funding for our police department and our fire response to ensure we have a safe community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pollan, your 1-minute response, please.
Well, certainly safety is important because, I mean, that's why most people move to our city, that, safe neighborhoods and good schools are the first two things that anyone's going to tell you, and those are the most important things. I ran a business in North Hollywood, and I can tell you what real violence was and lack of response. I mean, that's the thing that I will praise our Burbank police force on, that they respond and that they do their best, and that's very important. And it's also important to understand that it has to be a web of services. It's the police, the fire department's involved in it too, because the paramedics are dealing with drug abuse, which leads to crime. There's the homeless situation, which also leads to crime. So there's a lot of different factors, and I think that we have to constantly be reevaluating our approaches and reevaluating the actual what's really going on, and really working with the community, because community-based policing is what makes Burbank shine, and I think we do a great job.
Great, thank you. Now, the next question touches on an idea that several of you have already mentioned, and it goes to Ms. Nacion. To address the need for additional housing availability, should Burbank consider turning its own empty real estate into affordable housing and work with owners of empty commercial space to do the same? If yes, why? Or if no, why not? Ms. Nacion, your 2-minute response, please.
I believe most definitely we should look into the, say, empty lots or the empty buildings for additional housing, for affordable additional housing. However, I don't think it should be blanketed for every single piece of property that's empty. There definitely should be a balance. I think that, of course, it depends on how much it would cost, and therefore you have to draw a budget, and then also be able to attract the people who want to live in this affordable housing, for them to also be able to work and be able to afford whatever nominal rent they would be paying. So it depends on the situation or the building.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Wilkie, your 1-minute response, please.
Yes, of course we need to do that. We need to look at both city-owned property and we need to look at privately owned property. The bottom line is, and I said it earlier, is that the city's going to have to be part of the solution when it comes to housing availability. We have to make sure that we are providing plenty and ample opportunity for there to be good housing projects to happen throughout the city. And along with that, because it's important to all of us, that it's not just more housing, but that it's also affordable housing. And that's affordable housing both for purchase and for rent. And without the city's intervention, these things are not going to happen. I mean, SB 35 and others are requiring that they have a 10% portion of it, but some of these units are not, they're made for single people, they're not made for families, seniors, and those are the things that, we have to help the most vulnerable in our community to make sure that we are keeping them housed. So absolutely, yes, we need to be looking at that, and we need to be a big part of making that happen, because we are the people, we have the big power and the money and the ability to make those things happen, and we have to be a part of it.
Mr. Tenoyan, your 1-minute response, please.
I think it's a great idea to look at these kind of unused sites, redevelop them for affordable housing, but we also have to look at it kind of like a case-by-case basis. We also have to ask the people who are going to be living in these properties, do they want this? What kind of direction do they want to see this community and this development go to? We have to be very careful about going too aggressive with what we're redeveloping, because we might be spending a lot of money that we might not be able to recoup. So on one end, I definitely think we have to keep our folks housed, but on the other end, we have to look at it from a monetary perspective, make sure that we're not spending too much money that we're not going to be able to recoup back. And especially in these economic times, we have to be more conservative, we have to be very careful, and we have to be very frugal with how we're spending our tax dollars.
Thank you. Mr. Anthony, your 1-minute response, please.
One of the biggest changes recently to the California Surplus Land Act was that if a city or municipality tries to rezone or sell off any of the public land that they have, they first have to prove that it can't be used for housing. And I think that's been a big change, and a lot of municipalities are taking advantage of it. It's actually one of the main reasons why the piano store, the big brick building by the Metrolink station, is now being converted into our housing, our homeless center. It's going to be the first year-round homeless shelter the city's ever had, and that's because it's on public land, and rather than go through the hassle of trying to rezone it or sell it off, we said, you know what, let's use it for emergency shelter housing. And that has been a big push for my entire first term. I ran on that issue. Let's get a homeless shelter in Burbank. The rest of our public land needs to be used very smartly, I would say. We need to create affordable housing. We need to create it with mixed use, and we need to make sure it works for
Thank you.
everybody.
Mr. Rosati, your 1-minute response, please.
Thank you. On this issue, I'm all ears. Creativity is at the top level here. I was one of the first people that was proponent of taking down the Jocelyn Center, giving it to a developer, letting him develop that property. So we had a state-of-the-art Jocelyn Center at the bottom, let him lease it back to the city for 30 years, and building senior housing above it. We have to have all hands on deck in this situation. We only have 50 units on the market. So of course our prices are high. If we can get 300-400 units on the market, supply and demand, it will cause prices to fall. But we are not attacking this at the right way. We have to incentivize the development. I keep saying the same words over and over. We have to incentivize development to get our production up, our supply up, so prices will fall. And if we have to use city property, I think is a wonderful resource. That's the first thing we should do on our council meeting on day one is outline the properties that we own and which ones are we willing to develop. Thank you.
Ms. Pinero, your 1-minute response, please.
I'm very much pro looking at spaces that are currently underutilized to implement affordable housing opportunities. I think an adaptive reuse ordinance would be really beneficial for our community so that the transformation of these spaces is kind of more streamlined. Additionally, I'm pro subdivisions, looking at certain parcels and seeing where we can subdivide so that we can add additional housing that also fits in with the kind of single family neighborhood vibe that we have here in Burbank, because I think it is important that when we do think about development, we're making sure that our residents, that our homeowners and our renters are being taken care of with their rights, and not expanding so much so that we're kind of reducing those property rights. And I also think that we should be looking at our building codes to see what adjustments we can make in order to facilitate this redevelopment. Thank you.
Mr. Poland, your 1-minute response, please.
So Burbank has 107,000 residents, but every business day, our population goes to about 250,000. And so that's a problem, because there's people that can't live here that work here, and that leads to the climate crisis. There's so many other peripheral things that fall out from that. So we certainly, this is a huge project that we absolutely need to do. But it's two pieces. One, we need to change our codes, but two, we need to make our city staff a little more workable with developers and with residents. I find that oftentimes if you're a developer or resident and you talk to City Hall, what you find is that they're looking at you as a customer of city services, when in fact we're all shareholders. And what we want to do is we need everyone to be able to deal with City Hall and look at our work with our city officials and our city staff as on the same level, and work, really with respect on both sides, and find advocates to make things happen. So it's changing our codes, and it's also changing the culture of our staff to make these things possible.
Thank you. Mr. Van Gorder, your 1-minute response, please.
Yes, we have opportunity for infill housing, both large, like the IKEA building and the old Kmart, and small, like, for instance, Riley's Boutique, which is catty corner to my favorite coffee shop in town, The Palm. It's been closed since before COVID. We can recapture that. The state is constantly coming out with new laws that incentivize and speed up that conversion process. What I'd like to see are more public-private partnerships, and especially community land trust models that will not only create that affordable housing, but keep it affordable in the long term. We need to incentivize smaller lot development. We need to incentivize smaller developers. We need to reduce impact fees for those small developers and speed things along. I spoke to someone just yesterday who was saying that he is probably backing out of a project because it's too long to develop, because he's just one person going through this process with city staff, and it's too difficult. Difficult things, time-consuming things cost more money, make it less and less possible to get that housing that we need.
Thank you. The last question is directed first to Ms. Wilkie. From time to time, the City Council has taken positions of support or condemnation regarding international matters, such as the war in Gaza. Do you think that the City Council should be addressing international or national matters through proclamations or resolutions? Ms. Wilkie, your 2-minute response, please.
In general, I think the city council should stay in their lane. I think it's important that our city council focus on the things that they have the control over, right? That doesn't mean that it's not okay to bring matters that are of concern to everyone and could be an international issue. But what's happened with the most recent item, for instance, that the Palestinian issue and Israel, is that actually served to divide our community. And I think that is a dangerous place for us to step. I think as a council, we should be working to unify our community. We should be taking the voices that are either polarized on all sides to people in the middle, and we should be caring about each and every one of them and respecting their opinions. And those are the things that we need to be working toward rather than doing things that divide us. And I have talked to some people that felt very offended by what recently happened. And so I don't understand the value in the city council stepping into things like that, where at what point do we have any control or effect of those actions? I don't know where the resolution went. I don't know if the president got it, if the president's going to act on that. I mean, it's like, what is the cause and what is the effect? And sometimes there's more damage done than good. And so I think what I'm hearing from people is they want this city council to focus on the things that matter to them, the things that our residents care about, the things that our businesses care about. And when we spend a lot of staff time, a lot of public comment time, and a lot of heartache, I think that it hurts us, and I think that those are the kinds of things that our city council should not be involved in.
Thank you. Mr. Tenoyan, your 1-minute response, please.
So I'm going to take a bit of a contrarian view to that. I'm an international relations major. I graduated from UC Berkeley, and one thing I love is increased dialogue and experimenting with new ideas and new directions for governance. I've worked and traveled in multiple countries and continents all around the globe, and I've seen how interconnected our world is. One thing that happens in one part affects another part. We might not notice it now, how other things that happen in the world affect Burbank, but that might manifest itself years down the line. So I definitely want to inflate my ego a little bit over here to say that having me on the council would actually benefit us to have that increased international and global experience, to be able to balance these different interests and different issues in ways that don't compromise our local culture, our local love for our community, and really what we work on to preserve everything in Burbank. And make sure that different issues don't impact us, but we're able to contribute to the world in the ways that we can.
Thank you. Mr. Anthony, your 1-minute response, please.
The City Council takes statements and makes proclamations about a number of issues that aren't actual ordinances or laws. That's part of our job as elected officials, as representatives of the community. Last year, there was an outcry from our Armenian residents to take up the issue and decry the invasion of Artsakh. There were so many people at the City Council writing emails saying, please, please, you are elected officials, please say something. There was nothing we could do, but taking that up and speaking for the folks who were asking for it, I think is the job of a public official. The same thing happened recently, just a couple months ago, where people were crying out, please, please, please denounce anti-Semitism, denounce Islamophobia, speak out for peace, speak out against violence and war. After the City Council unanimously, by the way, voted for the statement on peace and unity, everybody thanked us. Rabbis, Palestinians, everybody.
Thank you. Mr. Rizzotti, your 1 minute response, please.
Thank you. You know, over the past 10 months, I've been out visiting our residents, asking them what they want to see from our city. And the word focus came up over and over. Focus, focus, focus on us is what they told me. And I think we have to stay in our lane. We got to take care of the business of our city, take care of our residents, and leave the outside world stuff to the outside world. None of us are experts in international affairs, and I certainly don't want to delve in those issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Pinero, your 1 minute response, please.
I think Burbank prides itself on being a welcoming community, and City Council making proclamations that relate to certain complaints or outcries from our community, I think does not harm our community. I heard divisiveness, but I think it's important to understand that although some people might be against certain things, I think it's more important that we speak and make sure that we're representing those that feel certain issues are affecting them. And I'm all for international matters and looking at how we can learn from other places and making adjustments in our own governance to ensure that all of our citizens feel welcome and represented. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Polon, your 1 minute response, please.
I would not have been a vote for the statement that our council made. I think I felt it was not a good statement at all. I think that we have problems in our community, that peace begins in our backyard, and I'd rather see us focus on those issues. Certainly, everyone has a right to come to council, to express their opinion, and council should, in very general terms, support the values of our city. The values of peace and compassion and empathy for all people and all cultures. So that's the type of resolution that I think is important. But when you start getting into the specifics of international conflict, I think it really is far beyond what we do in our city. And I also like to just say, for all those people that had so much passion, I urge you to continue to share that passion, but for other things as well, because there's lots of things in our world that could be improved, and you shouldn't just be a one-issue person.
Thank you. Mr. Van Gorder, your 1 minute response, please.
Yeah, this is personal to me because I would be the first Jew in the history of Burbank City Council. I was heartbroken by the October 7th attack, and I continue to be heartbroken for 1 year of asymmetrical warfare. The lives lost in Israel, the lives lost in Palestine, the potential for greater war is terrifying to me. Not every issue will directly affect any one section of our public, but basic humanity and empathy demands that when people look to us, we speak. People look to us for leadership and comfort, and we need to be there for them. International matters matter to our residents because all politics is local politics. So yes, when I'm asked to speak for the community, for people who are suffering, first I will listen, and then I will speak.
Thank you. Ms. Nacion, your 1 minute response, please.
I think the city council, when given when given the opportunity to state an opinion about international affairs, for sure, people should most definitely, or can have an opinion about it, but I don't necessarily think it should take up a good portion of time during a meeting. Of course, we want to work to build a better community and a better state and a better nation and a better world, but I think the City Council's responsibility is to absolutely focus on the local issues. Thank you.
Thank you. The candidates will now have 1 minute each for their closing statements. Mr. Tenoyan, your 1 minute closing statement, please.
Thank you so much to the League of Women Voters, to our Burbank community for coming out here and tuning in to our great candidates and what we have to offer to Burbank. Please, please, please vote very carefully. Think about what you want for your community. Think about the direction that your community is going in. I've been affected by the good and the bad in Burbank, and I've seen it in retrospect, and I'm putting in a future-minded approach to it, and I definitely want to encourage all of us to do the same. Our community is our future. Our youth and our families are our future, and we need to take care of one another as much as we can, starting now and never stopping.
Thank you. Mr. Anthony, your closing statement, please.
Thank you to the league for putting this together. You do a great job every year. Love to see you guys out there. To the folks watching at home, to the folks that are here today, there's a lot on your ballot this year. There's a lot. There's a lot of reading you got to do. There's a lot of statements you got to rifle through and endorsements you got to read through. All I can say is take your time, go to everyone's website, look at their policy positions. If you don't see something on there that you have an answer to, reach out. All of us are very easy to get a hold of. We can talk to you. We're regular people who can answer questions and have a response. So do the due diligence of reaching out and talking to the individual candidates. That's our job. I spent a lot of time taking time off from my other duties to be able to talk to constituents during campaign season because it's important. It's important to reach out and it's important to connect. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rosati, your closing statement, please.
Thank you. I just want to thank the League of Women Voters for having us here today. I'm the only one here and our council that had a vote on the Airbnb issue. On December 14, 2020, I led the conversation to a no vote for Airbnb to protect our residents. I've been endorsed by the people we trust in our community the most, the Burbank Firefighters Association, the Burbank Police Officers Association, the Burbank Employees Union, Burbank City Treasurer Crystal Palmer, Burbank City Council Member Suzette Mullins, Supervisor Catherine Barger, former Assembly Member Mike Gatto, IEBW Local 18, Local 11, and 10 past mayors of Burbank. Thank you very much. I'm number 3 on your ballot.
Thank you. Ms. Pinero, your closing statement, please.
Time and time again, I have heard the call for more young people to get involved, and this is me listening. I think it's incredibly important that we bridge the gap between our young generation and our older generation so that we move to a more sustainable, beautiful Burbank. I have the time, the means, and the motivation to be of assistance to all of Burbank. I am unaffiliated with a political party and believe that a neutral stance is what is most important in order to bridge the gap and ensure that all voices are heard and are taken into consideration when making decisions on behalf of the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Poland, your closing statement, please.
Thank you, everyone, for participating. You know, I owned my bakery for 18 years, and not a day went by that someone didn't ask me for one of my recipes. They often offered to buy one of my recipes. And I always told them, you're asking the wrong question, because a recipe is just a list of instructions that you can find on the internet. What you need is a baker to turn that list of instructions into something delicious. And it's the same thing in politics. You've heard 9 people give you their recipes for a better Burbank, and now your job is to look at those people and decide whether they're the person that could actually bring the change that we all want. I am proud to be the only candidate to be endorsed by Congressman Adam Schiff. I'm endorsed by Assemblymember Laura Friedman. I'm endorsed by 3 city members of our city council, Mayor Nick Schultz, Vice Mayor Nikki Perez, and Councilmember Tamala Takahashi. And I'm proud to have their endorsements, and they endorsed me because we all share the same values, the same democratic values, the same values of the community. And then I'm proud to have those endorsements because it says a lot about who I am, and it should give you a signal of who you should vote for. Thank you.
Mr. Van Gorder, your closing statement, please.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. So I'm the best person for this job. We're in a housing crisis, and I'm a professional housing policy analyst for the state of California. I'm a union member. I'm a public school parent. I'm living a life like a life like yours. There are so many of us that are struggling to get by, and we need to build the working class representation on our council. It needs to be a majority working class council who are experiencing this economy right now. To that end, I've knocked 2,000 doors personally. My team has knocked 10,000 doors overall. I look forward to speaking to you in person to talk about what you're concerned about and what we can do together to protect our progress and keep moving that needle forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Nacion, your closing statement, please.
I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for having us in this forum and the City of Burbank for providing the facilities. As mentioned, I've been living in our lovely city of Burbank for the majority of my adult life, and I really like it here, and I am seeking your vote. And I do think that I would be able to bring an objective perspective and analysis to city issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Wilkie, your closing statement, please.
First and foremost, my experience as a 32-year employee for the city of Burbank is going to be invaluable for this community. But what you're going to get from me as a council member is someone who has common sense, someone who is absolutely going to take the politics out of our council. But lastly, and most importantly, I'm a person who cares deeply that all voices are heard. And right now, I don't think that's the case with some of our council members. If you do not agree with them, then your voice does not matter. I see it on social media. I see it on a variety of Reddit and other areas, and what it is, it's the opposite of what they say. They say they care about people, but at the end they don't. And I'm going to tell you, as I sit in this room and I watched people disagree with some of the comments being made here, there was eye rolling, there was faces being made, and that's the kind of thing that I don't accept, and I will not treat anybody that way who disagrees with me, because every single person
Thank you.
matters.
Thank you. This concludes our candidate forum. Our thanks to the candidates for your participation in today's forum. We're also grateful to Jonathan Jones and the staff of the Burbank Channel for their valuable support in making this event possible. Please be sure to vote, whether in person or by mail, so that your ballot is received by November 5th. Thank you.